Hello, I am Father Casper Nemaisfide of Radio Veritas Asia. Welcome to the special conversations with Voice of Asian Bishops. It is a privilege, honor, and blessing to have with us today Archbishop of Cebu, the Most Reverend Jose Palma. Bishop Palma, welcome.
Father Casimir, thank you for this opportunity.
Archbishop Jose Palma was born on March 19, 1950 in Dingle in the Archdiocese of Haro, province of Iloilo, on the Visayan island of Panay, Philippines. He studied philosophy at the St. Vincent Ferrer Seminary in Haro and finished his theological studies at the St. Joseph Regional Seminary in the same locale. He received his licentiate in Sacred Theology, magna cum laude, at the University of Santo Tomas Central Seminary and a doctorate from the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas in Rome, also magna cum laude. On August 21, 1976, he became a priest. After studying in Rome, Father Palma assumed the role of rector at the St. Vincent Ferrer Seminary and later took on the position of rector at the major seminary of the Metropolitan Province of Haro, also recognized as the St. Joseph Regional Seminary in 1988. The late Pope, St. John Paul II, appointed him as the titular Bishop of Vasari Didi and Auxiliary Bishop of Cebu on November 28, 1997, and consecrated him on January 13, 1998. On March 18, 2006, Pope Benedict XVI, Vice Archbishop Pedro Dean, appointed Palma as the Archbishop of Palo. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines elected him as Vice President on December 1, 2009. He succeeded Ricardo J. Cardinal Vidal on October 15, 2010, becoming the fourth Archbishop of Cebu, and he was installed on January 13, 2011.
Let me start with this question. You have been serving one of the largest archdioceses in Asia, Archdiocese of Cebu, since 2011.
Yes.
Can you tell us the general picture of your archdiocese?
Cebu is certainly one of the biggest archdioceses in Asia. We know it's established in 1595, and this time it is one of the largest in terms of population as well as number of priests. Cebu as a province may have more than 5 million and around 4,600,000 Catholics, and there may be around 625 priests. Compared with other dioceses, certainly that's big. That's why this early, I'd like to make this announcement. We have already made a proposal to be submitted to Rome to divide Cebu. But our term is Sugbuswak, which means Cebu giving birth to two new dioceses.
Talking about that general pictures, I believe your archdiocese have plenty of programs for the people. Can you share us what are the most beneficial the programs you think for the people?
Cebu is often known to most people as the diocese, the Church of Senior Santo Niño. And in terms of programs, we make it a point to cultivate the devotional life of the people. Of course, we are a Marian church. There's a lot of Marian shrines in Cebu, and it is also our joy to develop that, to cultivate that. But more and more, we begin to realize that faith should be expressed in, as Mother Teresa said, faith should bear fruit in love, and love should bear fruit in action. And that's why, with the invitation from the Holy Father to make faith more visible by the good works we do, we begin to think of the many ways we can reach out to people. And I think recently, one of the most accepted way we reach out to people is through Cebu Caritas. It's a recent introduction, fruit of also our introduction of the cause of a famous, I would say, of a blessing in terms of being a son of Cebu, the Venerable Teofilo Camomot. It was on his birthday that we launched Cebu Caritas. Caritas meaning, of course, love. And it is our way of saying the faith that we have held and we treasured and we considered a blessing should be expressed in love in terms of projects, in terms of the many ways we reach out to the poor, like, of course, feeding, uh, assistance in housing, of course, help during calamities, medical missions, and many other activities. We have 165 parishes, and we have around 130 parishes with Cebu Caritas, equivalent to the social action arm of many dioceses, but here it is more organized. And I think it is more to the culture of Cebuano to connect it with one holy prelate, Teofilo Camomot.
Having explained those ministries in your diocese, Archbishop, where do you envision your diocese in the future? Where do you want to see the development of your diocese in the future?
I am amused with the question because I often say, you ask me now, in the next year, I may be out now because I will be retired. So, but my vision is the vision of the priests, namely, because we envision to divide the diocese, then we just hope that the mother diocese continues to provide the ministry we have, and the young churches will begin to also share the same enthusiasm of the mother church.
Prostitution, of course, I know it's not only happening in Cebu, but also happen everywhere. It's one of the most cherished social issues in Cebu. How the church has responded to this issue, Archbishop?
I feel sad when I think of that reality. And I know that when I first came to Cebu 25 years ago, in fact, the area where they proliferate is around the area of the church in Santo Rosario. Why do I mention that? It is also because I feel relieved to some extent that the auxiliary bishop then, Polito Cortes, established what we call kahupayan. It's a Cebuano word which simply means some kind of relief, And this is the apostolate of the people he organized to reach out, especially to prostitutes. Well, if you have to say harshly the word, or those people or who are either, who are engaged in this kind of business. We hear of inspirations and hopes and stories of reform, and yet we know it continues, and yet somehow to an extent that we try to address the issue and we try to tell women there is hope even if they are hooked into it. That's already something. I only pray that more and more kahupayan centers would be established, but so far I know it's not easy. We need one with the charisma, and we need a lot of volunteers, especially women, who love, of course, sister women, and not only they but their family to be in the ministry.
So let's move now to a question about your vocation. Can you tell us or share us your vocation as bishop and of course as a priest? How did you respond to God's call, say yes into that invitation?
To me, something very important is the family. I will always remember whenever there are activities in our barangay chapel, the priest would stay in our house because of our family. he would spend the night there, no, if he could not go home. And we, the little children would watch and, and feel like, there is, I will use the word, not so often used, but I think that's where I came from. I had this fascination, with the mystery of the priesthood. We would peep what the priest is doing. We would, and then tag along when he goes to Mass until I begin to question some celebrations that develop interest in me. That's one. But I said the family is a big factor because family members, of course, our elders, develop in us the habit of prayer. We do that. The rosary, the devotion to the saints. As every Sunday we are told to go together at Mass, I understand. I think to some extent that's the seed bed of vocation, such that when I graduated from high school, I began to entertain the idea. I said, I'll try. And God has a way of, I think, developing that initial attraction into a deepening of vocation. It's like a journey that just continues without much interruption until, of course, I graduated. And my bishop, I think, sees in me some kind of potential. He told me to study in the National Seminary in UST. And after that, I came back to teach. And he told me to study in Rome. And after that, I came back, to teach. So basically, it's like that. It's an involvement in the capacity of a formator. And of course, I influenced other vocations in the seminary until one day, I said, I have to try the parish life. I had always been in the institution of learning. So they assigned me in a parish. And after 6 months, they make me a bishop.
Having narrated that vocation from being a priesthood and bishop, if I may ask, what challenge that you have faced as a bishop? And how do you resolve them?
Challenges depend on usually the situation of the diocese. In Samar, which is of course my first diocese as an ordinary, being a very poor diocese, the challenge is to journey with brother priests in the context of the poverty of the people. And it is there that our basic ecclesial community is strong. We develop that capacity to reach out to them and to think in terms of how can we make the sacraments available even with poor people, things like that. So this is Samar. Laity, a little bit more established, with a lot of priests who are professionally trained, with degrees in many universities. But we make good use of that as well to try to make the renewal of the archdiocese possible. Cebu, being a huge diocese, tends to maintain status quo. I have to say that even in public. In many ways, especially priests can be contented. They are contented with Cebu, because Cebu is a religious place. People are, so collaborative. Relatively compared with the other dioceses, we are very much at home here, such that I use the word, that tendency to maintain, as the Pope says, to maintain the status quo is there. And that's why, to me, a great hope now happens because of the challenge of the Pope. The Pope says we should not be a maintenance church. The idea of mission, the idea of reaching out, the idea of going to the periphery is now the main challenge. Happily, it's catching up, the whole idea. I made mention of Cebu Caritas, which is an organization, which is a way of reaching out to the poor. I think that's a good way to introduce the message of the Pope. Uh, Likewise, the ways we we should live out what the Pope says as an expression of our solidarity and fraternity. In a huge diocese, that's not easy. When there are 500 of you, no, how can you be intimate? And that's why a relatively small diocese might make a good uh, opportunity.
You chose your Episcopal motto, non domis domine,
Okay.
not unto us, O Lord.
Okay.
Share us how this motto has guided your ministry.
The funny thing is when when we are called bishop, the nuncio immediately says, "What's your motto?" You're not even prepared to. But they said anyway, he make us choose so many things. But that somehow is my inclination. I said, in whatever I do and whatever apostolate we perform, whatever ministry, the recognition, the honor, of course, we say in our language, the glory, should never be us. It's always God. No? So, not to us, Lord, not to us, but to your name, give the glory. And so, like in anything, the question is, will this give glory to God? Not in any way should I hope, that some kind of recognition, some kind of honor or privilege will be mine because of this. That it is accredited to me, but always and all the time is this for the glory of God.
In line with that, giving glory to God, FABC's famous jargon, triple dialogue with culture, poor, and the religion. Particularly mentioned for your context, Archbishop, dialogue with the poor or marginalized people. How this dialogue with poor has been implemented in your diocese?
Okay. I feel consoled that in many situations where we have to reach out to the poor, the culture of Cebu is also very cooperative. Like in the time of COVID, when not so many poor people could go out, no, because their areas are cordoned, then we have ways of making associations, establishments aware that when we need food, they have the means to, to carry food to certain sectors of the barangay, things like that. And I'm happy with that. Lately, we also established a way of challenging the farmers to make good use of certain areas, for instance, land of the Archdiocese that has been unproductive, and find a way to make it productive for their own, for their own welfare. But of course, the often implemented way of reaching is through medical mission. Uh, we have we have a lot of associations of medical people who find it, uh, of course, a Christian way of reaching out to the poor through medical mission.
What is your message to young people who is now increasingly use social media to evangelize, to bring good news to the people?
I'm really inspired and I'm happy that the young people, by their interest and culture, are into social media. I thank I thank the direction of the church, especially when many young people are into social media. No less than, of course, the Holy Father has been encouraging that, and our very own Cardinal Chito would say, young people, this is your gift. Be influencers, and I know that they influence a lot of young people, through various ways. I I get amazed with how fast, how talented they are, and the various ways they can really reach out to each other. St. Francis Xavier, he has to travel hundreds of miles to go to people. But now with social media, you can stay in your room and you can reach out to them, no, and be an influencer, an instrument of joy and consolation and hope, through social media. And I said, what a beautiful way, And I think uh, this is the direction I believe we have to take. And on our part, we just assure, I mean, of course, we assure you of our health, but this is where you are good at. And I think be influencers really for the welfare of many who need company and, of course, friends, assistance, and ways to make them realize, despite what separates us, media unites us.
Pope Francis proposed the synodal way of approaching the church into a mission. And in fact, we just finished the first synod and synodality in Rome. My question is how this synodal way as a way of the church renewing itself into the mission has been implemented in your diocese in particular.
People know, and my priests know, that whenever decisions are made, I'm one who would often and usually pass through various ways of consultations and meetings. The aspect of listening, of listening to as many as possible. Others may comment that's slow, but I think better slow, and yet people know they are in it. On the other hand, the other dimension of synodality, which I feel may not be that, maybe a challenge, especially in a place like Cebu, is because of culture also, people put us, by us, I mean we priests, in some kind of a pedestal, like whenever a priest speaks, they stop speaking, that's it, as if everything is decided. And I know that's not the best way to attain, the spirit of synodality. And that's why I think, as much as possible, uh, it's good to be patient in this regard, to be able to call meetings without speaking much, I mean the priest, and allow especially the lay people and the many others to come out with their own ideas, and then we realize how gifted they are also.
Still in line with that spirit of synodality, Pope Francis recently established a new dicastery, culture and education, in which you are one of the members. Can you tell us or share us what is really your role there? Any specific plans on this new dicastery?
Our approach now is, as much as possible, to establish educational centers as also centers for culture, where dialogue can happen. And we just hope that constant gathering together and listening to each other will develop that spirit of dialogue. I must admit, though, that I know in the past there is a different dicastery for education, and then there is a different dicastery for culture, but now for some reasons they fuse it. Well, I just hope that eventually the culture, I use the word, the culture of dialogue will happen likewise, especially in our educational centers.
Santo Niño is one of the oldest and the biggest devotion in the Philippines. How has Santo Niño influenced people's faith, particularly in your diocese?
In times of joy, the Niño is there. In times of calamity, the Santo Niño is there. In our own language, we say, tuburan sa kalipay, source of joy, and also paglaom sa pagsulay, source of hope in moments of difficulties. To that extent, it is good. Now, to us, the invitation is, how can this devotion make us love Christ for who He is, namely that he is not only the little boy, no, but Christ grew up to be a man who taught us about the Father's plan, taught us about living as sisters and brothers to each one, taught us to, get involved in the renewal of society. And I think that's a challenge. Uh, in fact, the Niño, who is a little boy, grew up and offered his life for us. What is its implication? I do believe when these challenges are being posed, somehow in the future, the Niño would be not only the little boy, but also the God who has been sent by the Father to redeem us by his sacrifices and dying. So to me, to us, the direction should also be set in this regard.
Some argue that Cebu has replaced Imperial Manila as epicenter of Catholicism in the Philippines. What is your thoughts on this issue? And do you think is this feasible to say this, and why?
Coming from Cebu, I am not one who would, say that we replace Imperial Manila. No? Well, of course, I respect Manila, but also I'll just put it this way: we are grateful for who we are in Cebu, no? for the for the Catholicity that is typically Cebuano, for the city that has still provincial outlook, and even for the ways in which media seems to be, as we say, the community media, no? A different tenor in Manila. Mm, have have we replaced Manila or Imperial Manila? I'm not sure. No? But all I'd like to say, we're happy with who we are, and we respect Manila for who they are. And so this is Jose Palma speaking for me, for myself. No? But between us, even as I was talking with my auxiliary bishop, who is also from my province, Medifil Billones, no? He's a wonderful person. He said, "We are blessed to be in Cebu. We are blessed to be in Cebu. It's not it's not the perfect diocese, but it is one where we know we can thank the Lord for His blessing, and we can work out for the ways we think directions could be improved."
This is my final question, Archbishop. Radio Veritas Asia has 21 language services around Asia. Please convey your message for our viewers.
To all of you, viewers of Radio Veritas, thank you so much for your patronage of this wonderful way of reaching out to each other as sisters and brothers. We know we had been here, Radio Veritas, for the past so many years. And we know that because of this, we may be separated by islands or distances or even by languages, but there are things that unite us, meaning our feeling that we are brothers and sisters, our feeling that we are one in our hopes and dreams as a community, our longing for peace, and our desire that despite the many trials and struggles and problems, we know there is something deep in us that can make us survive all of this. There is something that can make us believe tomorrow can be better somehow than today. And it is our faith in the good Lord. You may call it in other names, but our faith that this God who made us still continue to journey with us, and our faith in our own goodness and in the goodness of others. Yes, there are along the way difficulties, yet we know this is still a good world to live in. God bless you.
Archbishop Palma, it has been pleasure and pleasing talking to you. Thank you very much.
So the customer the same here, and God bless.
I am Father Casmerema SVD. Thank you for watching and see you next time for more conversations with Asian bishops.